back. We are tackling financial wellness today, specifically debt. Here to help take the stress out of debt reduction is financial expert from Creative Money, Mindy Crary. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good.
You have some very specific tips, which I think are helpful for us to just kind of get a handle on our emotions and our approach to trying to get out of debt. You say commit to clarity. What does that mean?
Well, what I run into a lot of times when I'm working with people individually is they haven't even figured out, given the payment that they're making and the balance that they have, how long is it actually going to take them to pay that off? And so I compare it to stepping on the scale January 2nd after the holiday.
And actually looking at the number.
And looking at the number. You have to know what you're working with to really get clarity about what you're motivated to do to pay that off in that time frame.
And it's somewhat less scary then, right? Because you know what the program is.
Because you know what it is. And I think clarity is always less scary than ambiguity.
Yes. Okay. Use the debt snowball. What does that mean? That sounds bad to have your debt snowball.
It's actually a good thing, because what it means, let's say somebody has 3 different credit cards and the payment among those 3 credit cards is $500. That means regardless of what is paid off when, you have committed to paying off $500 every single month until all of the debt is paid off. And so what that means is once the first debt is paid off, you apply that payment to the next one.
Oh, so you don't go down with whatever the minimum is. You commit to the whole deal
so if you
at
pay
the
off,
same amount.
So for example, if you pay off your car loan and your car loan was $150 a month, that's not an extra $150 that you get to play with. That's $150 that gets to go to the next debt in the list.
Okay. Track your spending weekly, which is amazing when you do it and you think, I did what?
I find that tracking weekly helps people course correct. And so what I compare it to is I can say that I'm only going to have a couple of coffees a week, and that maybe my budget, I'm only going to spend $40 on coffee a month. But I might get to the 15th of the month and notice I'm already $35 in of my $40 budget. And the only way to correct that, because we all have busy lives, and the only way I've found to correct that is just take 15 minutes a week and go in and see where you're at with all of your spending. And that can help you more than anything else adjust and adapt and really stay on track.
Because you just might not know. Life goes by, as you say, we're super busy. This is interesting. You say detach from your story.
Yeah, so I find a lot of people have a lot of agonization or anxiety about their debt. And I always say it doesn't matter what you did, it just matters what you're going to do. And in that way, I want people to detach from whatever caused the debt in the first place, because that anxiety and those negative feelings can prevent you from doing better and from really focusing on what is the plan going forward and really feeling empowered to be able to pay off that debt.
Give me an example of how that might happen, or the details of a case you've worked on.
I had a client, and this is recent. She was unemployed for 9 months last year, and so she ran up her credit cards. She did not withhold enough to the IRS for her unemployment, and so she said, I've got some debt to deal with. She finally has a job. It pays her a little bit less than it was before, but all she can work with is what's happening now. And so it does not serve her to feel bad about the unemployment. That wasn't necessarily something she had control over. All she has control over is how she can deal with that debt now. And it might not, what I always tell people too is it might not be the ideal debt payment scenario that you have in your mind, but she can move forward in a way that takes care of that, but also gives her sanity and balance in her life too.
It's sort of, isn't it true of so many areas of life, those things that you have no control over, you really need to let those go. You're carrying those around and there's nothing you can do. Build up your cash reserves. I like the sound of that.
Well, I always say, even if somebody has, and I'll give you an example, if somebody said, I'm going to pay down this debt by paying $500 a month, but I actually have the ability to pay it down by $700 a month, I would tell them, instead of doing that and paying your debt down faster, start a cash reserve and put that cash reserve someplace that's away from your normal day-to-day spending. And what that does is then the next emergency, because we all know there's going to be a next emergency. The next emergency, maybe they can't pay 100% of the emergency with that cash reserve, but they can start by using that cash reserve, and then they don't go backwards as far if they, let's say something happens to their car and they can use half of their cash reserve to pay for it and part of the credit card to make that work so they can drive their car again.
That makes sense. And you say reject perfection. Just kind of good life advice.
Nothing is going to go perfectly. And I think what I see happen is people want the perfect debt payment plan that shows, okay, this is going to get paid off in 24 months. And that would be great if it happened. I would love it. But reality is that's not the way it's going to happen. And so it's almost just as important to plan what's going to happen when I do get off track. If it's beyond my control, there's going to be some process that you're going to need to kind of work on to course correct, and maybe it is in your control. Maybe you just decided that my family has to go on this vacation and there's no two ways about it, and that's going to set back your debt payment off. It doesn't, and so again, I go back to it doesn't matter what you did, it matters what you're going to do going forward. And as long as people expect that it's not going to be a perfect debt payoff plan, that just helps them get back on track that much faster.
So what's your advice about where to go for help? Most people don't have a financial advisor. Most of us are trying to figure this out on our own. So if we have debt problems, or if we're trying to get our credit built back up, I see all these commercials for things like Credit Karma, other apps and places you can go to. What's your general recommendation?
Well, I love Credit Karma because Credit Karma is about clarity, and it was actually the first organization that would give somebody an estimate of their credit score without having to pay for it. And especially in this day and age with our personal information out there, I think Credit Karma is a great way to just have a free method to monthly monitor your credit. And also, based on your credit score, they will give you recommendations about better products for you. So maybe a lower interest auto loan or a zero balance transfer card, things like that. So I love Credit Karma for that. The other things that I really love is Mint.com for tracking my spending.
Mint, M-I-N-T?
M-I-N-T. Mint.com. I've used that since they came out. They were bought by Intuit, the same people that do TurboTax and Quicken. And the other one, that if somebody really wants to get serious about their money, there is an app out there called YNAB. It stands for You Need a Budget. Y-N-A-B.
Okay, I can remember that.
And if somebody isn't being successful just by kind of cutting back and setting some parameters on their own, I will tell them to go boot camp with YNAB and get super clear about their spending for 90 days.
That sounds both exciting and terrifying. Thank you very much. Those are great suggestions. Up next, our medical experts return to answer your medical questions. We'll be right back.